Good afternoon, everybody. You know who this is, and you know what I'm going to talk about right now. So let's just jump right in. I've given myself a week to decide what it is I want to say because there's so much that actually needs to be said. And I usually use a script about what I'm going to talk about so that I can give accurate facts, or as accurate facts as I can give, or accurate stats that I can give. But I decided to go a little bit off the cuff this time because there's just so much that needs to be said about this case, about other cases, and about some other things that are going on. That to write a script, I kind of got scatterbrained in trying to do it. I couldn't figure out what I wanted to say, so I just figured I'll just talk straight off my head, and what comes out comes out. And I mean, if I need to fix anything later, I will. But yeah, ex-president Donald Trump was found guilty on all 34 counts of fraud pertaining to a hush money payment that he had made to a porn star during the election of during his presidential run in 2015-16. Um, and of course, as you would expect, Democrats are happy, Republicans, some of them are upset, and it's extreme on both cases. Um, the thing is, to me, is what the Republicans decided to say. I mean, you knew they would defend him, but you didn't necessarily know how. Although they had been defending him earlier when the case was brought up by saying, this is the Biden DOJ, blah, 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 and all this other stupid crap about Alvin Bragg and the judge in the case. And here's the thing: the DOJ doesn't control local law enforcement. The DOJ has nothing to do with local law enforcement. DOJ is mostly federal. I mean, they will intervene in some instances, like with I want to say the DOJ has a lot to do with consent decrees when it comes to policing. But as far as who brings up what charge against what person, the DOJ really has nothing to do with it. And in a lot of ways, unfortunately or fortunately, however you want to look at it, President Biden decided that he'd stay out of it to get rid of any signs of impropriety or you know, trying to use the ham fist of the DOJ to do this. Um, and the funny thing is, you have these Republicans who always used to say, if you're innocent, you have nothing to worry about. But then they turn around and, try to do everything they can to derail the wheels of justice in favor of Donald Trump, a wealthy white man who really doesn't need that kind of favor because, I mean, hell, the country was made to serve people like him. And the fact that 12 citizens decided to bring up, when they convened the grand jury, decided that charges should be brought up, and then another 12, not the same ones that brought up that decided to indict him, no, another 12 jury members or members of the population who his legal team vetted and decided to leave on the jury, found him guilty. And then he comes out and whines about, oh, my lawyers wasn't allowed to pick the jurors they wanted, which is a lie, because attorneys on both sides have to agree on the jury. They can't just be one side getting everybody they want and the other side not getting anyone. Um, your team picked these people. His team picked these people because they figured they'd be fair. But now that it went against him, all of a sudden everything was unfair. He also whined about a couple of his witnesses kept being objected against, and the judge in the case would oppose the prosecution objection of the defense witness when they were lying. Well, guess what? You're not supposed to lie on the stand. It's called perjury. And when someone's committing perjury and there's proof of it, each attorney decides to object, and it's normally When the judge know it's a lie, or when the objecting party approves it's a lie, it's sustained. And your lawyers decided to object to what was said on the defense side. I mean, I'm sorry, on the prosecution side, and that objection was denied because your lawyers would only object to the things that the people were saying, not that what they were saying wasn't true, just that you didn't like what they were saying because, of course, it went against your argument. And then I watched his press conference the day after the verdict, where he said, and I watched the whole thing, and I'm trying to remember a lot of it. I really should have written a script for this, but he decided to say that when you give someone $130,000 and they sign an NDA, that's to keep them quiet. I'm paraphrasing. He didn't say it exactly like that, but he did admit that he gave someone an NDA and $130,000, which was the exact amount of payment that he was accused of giving Stormy Daniels the hush money. And that's why your attorneys didn't want you to testify, because the more Donald Trump talked, the more this idiot incriminates himself. Every time he opens his mouth, he incriminates himself. It's just like an interview with Fox the other day that they chopped up to make him look sane. He wanted to release all the investigation, all the investigative work done for September 11, 2001 attack. He wanted to release everything on the JFK assassination. And initially he said he wanted to release everything that the Department of Justice had investigated on Epstein. And then he pulled back a little bit and said, well, maybe not everything. And you know the stuff that he don't want to release because he's been accused of being an Epstein client. I mean, he was one of his best friends. But see, that's not the only thing going on with any of his cases or any other case. In Georgia, the Court of Appeals in Georgia decided to delay the appeal that had been given them since April. Trump lawyers decided to give them in April paperwork to appeal the fact that Fani Willis was still on the case. Well, appeals can go quickly, or if the judges have favor with the person that's filing the appeal, they can go as slow as they want. And they decided to go to a glacial crawl this time because they're not even going to hear the arguments in the appeal until freaking October, a month before the general election for the presidency. Similar to what Aileen Cannon's done in Florida. Delay. She's had motions that she's been holding on since last year, and now she's saying, oh, I'm too backed up to actually rule on these, so we're going to slow everything down further. Just like with the Supreme Court, they normally get cases of emergency, like with Dum Dum saying that he's immune to everything. They normally rule on that immediately. This they've not ruled on yet, and they've had that for 3-4 months now. You see, it is a two-tier justice system, and you know they always whine about he's being treated differently because he actually is. They just don't want to admit that he's being treated differently in his favor. Because if you and I were accused, and rightfully accused, by a presiding judge of contempt of court, we're not going to pay a small fine. We're going to be put in jail that day until we decide to apologize. He was charged $1,000 for every one of the 9 instances of contempt of court for his disobeying a gag order or having his intermediaries violate the gag order. But he wasn't put in jail for it. I would have been put in jail. You would have been put in jail. So there's 2 tiers right there. The next tier, like I said, is the justice system that, unfortunately, he had a lot to do with and put in place. So we'll call it justice. They're delaying they're delaying every single tactic. They're using every single delay tactic they can to try to stop any case from going through before the election. And you and I aren't going to get those. We're not going to get that type of leniency from the justice system. And I don't mean just a black person. I mean any white person, any poor white person. This man who's sitting whining about justice now is circumventing justice in his favor to do so. And he has the system set up to allow him to do it. And that's unfair. It's unfair that he's found guilty on all counts, that all 12 jurors decided on all counts that he was guilty. And that was another thing that another one on Fox News decided to whine about, that they made up charges. No, they didn't make up a damn thing, and his attorneys knew what was going to happen. See, in New York, a certain amount of misdemeanors can add up to a felony. And he was charged with a whole lot of misdemeanors that became felonies upon conviction. That's just what happens. Now, I'm curious to see what happens on July 11 when he's sentenced. I can't wait for this, because I have another feeling that for him, they're not going to assign jail time the way they would you or I for the same crimes. And if he's actually put in jail before he can appeal, he's just going to get house arrest anyway. They'll never throw him in jail. They're not going to put him in a suit that matches his goddamn skin complexion. They're just not going to do it. And that's the sad thing about the whole thing, is there is no fairness in the justice system when it comes to wealthy people, man or woman. There's no fairness in it, because they have the resources to tie up things in court. And then, of course, he uses this to get campaign donations that, of course, he's only using for himself. I honestly, I don't know what else to say about this part of it, because I'm happy that he was found guilty. I'm not happy with I'm not happy with the outcome of it, because normally when you're found guilty of most people, even of non-violent felonies, you get remanded. You don't walk away without paying a bond, a bail, or anything else. He just walked the hell away, got in his car, waved to an empty street, and drove off. That's 2 tiers, though. That top tier works for everybody but us. It's just something to talk about, though.